Hi, this is Kerry with Learn Davinci Resolve, and today we're going to tackle a number of different things that some of you have asked for. We're going to look at some compositing, we're going to look at some rotoscoping, and how to delay some clips. And what I mean by that, let's take a look at our final project. And this is what the finished product is going to look like. So I'll play it through and then we'll kind of go back and dissect it. Okay, so this is what we're going to end up with. Now, you can, if you look in the description, there's a link to my website, to the article that covers this, and you can actually download the project archive. That'll give you all the media and everything. So if you want, you can download all that and follow along as I go through it. So let's dissect this a little bit so I can show you what we're going to do, and we'll take a quick look. So if you look, as this explosion goes off, we added some camera shake. We have this explosion going off that's masked behind these buildings, and that's done with some rotoscoping. And as this fireball gets big, you see this orange glow of the fire on these other buildings. We did that with some color correction and a mask. And then we kind of do the same thing over on the other side. We add another explosion that's rotoscoped behind these buildings with, again, some camera shake. So that's what we're going to accomplish. So if you want, go download the files from the website, get them all ready, and we'll get going when we come right back. Okay, here is the project as you will see it if you go through and download the sample footage. Now, I can go through and I'm going to go through some of these things step by step so you can see how they're done, but I'm not going to do all of it because it's going to be repetitive as we add more and more flames to it and things. So, but I do want to kind of walk through a number of these so you understand what is going on. So if we look at our media in here, this first one is the city scene. So that's going to be our primary backdrop. And this is going into a color corrector. And the reason for the color corrector is to add those, let me go to a single viewer here. That'll help a little bit. So the color corrector has, you can see I've got some keyframes in here. So it brightens up as we move through. And that's this glow of the fire that was added. Now, to keep that from being the entire image, we've masked that with a polygon. So here's the polygon shape that's being put in, and I'm limiting it to the sides of the buildings that are facing the fireball. And then this is tracked along as that drone shot moves. So that's how we kind of keep it in place as we go along. Now, I didn't really need to move this particular track or this polygon because it was a very short sequence. So it's still there and it's not in line with the buildings because we didn't need it to be. But let's take a look at one of these other flames here. Oops, let me go back to the double view. Okay, that's the first one. Let's take a look at the second one. And that comes in a little later. And that one, the drone shot is moving, so we needed to follow that along. So what we needed to do is mask out those buildings in the background, and we do that with this polygon that I have up here. So here we can see that mask that we've got in place. And as we move through the scene, that polygon needs to shift along with those buildings. So we'll take a look at how to do that. So I'm going to come back to my edit page. And here's the final sequence with the audio files in it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this background, which I got from Pexels, P-E-X-E-L-S. There'll be a link in the description. It's a place to get free footage. So that's our scene here. And if we just kind of play through this, we just see it's a nice pan shot of the city. So then I'll make sure I get the playhead over that, and I'll go into Fusion. So I've got my media in and my media out by default here. And let's open up I'm going to close my effects library and just open up my media pool. And let's find the first explosion so we can see what that looks like. I'm going to pull this one down in here, and let's go ahead and rename that to Explosion 1. Try and keep these organized so we know what they are. And we want to superimpose that onto the background, right? So the way we would do that, right, would be a merge. And I'll take this and bring it up here and connect those two and bring that to my media out, right? Now, if we're not seeing what we expect to see, it's probably because we have our foreground and background different. So you can hover over that and go, okay, well, that explosion's in the background. It actually needs to be in the foreground. So I'm going to hit Command T and move that into the foreground. Now let's open this up so we can see it a little bigger. So there's our first explosion. And I want it to be behind this big building here. So I'm going to move it into place. But of course, it's in front of it. And we have a 2D scene here. This isn't a three-dimensional scene. I didn't cut this up and separate things so I could just layer them. Now I have to actually create a mask in order to put that behind it. So I'm going to go back to my Media 1 here and put that up on the screen. And what I'm going to need to do is create a polygon around this so I can mask it out. So I'm just going to go and shift space, put in a polygon, and now I'm just going to draw it in here. Now for the sake of time, so that this isn't a 2-hour video, I'm going to kind of rough it, and that's why I wanted to provide you with the final project so you can bring it up and kind of take it from there. So I'm just going to rough around these buildings here. And then I can just bring this pretty far down because it's not really going to matter. And close that polygon. Now, let me put this in place. And we'll bring the merge up. And if I bring this polygon onto there, it did exactly the opposite of what I wanted. It only put the flames in that polygon. So I want to make sure I select that polygon and select invert. Now I have it behind it. Now, sure, I can go through here on this polygon and I can increase the border width and things to help it blend a little bit better. So now we've got that. Let's go ahead and go to our edit page here. And I'm going to get this one out of the way so it's not rendering constantly. And now we have this one. So we'll let this one render for a moment. Okay, now that that's rendered, let's go ahead and play through this. And if we do it right there, no big deal because there wasn't really any movement. But let's say we want to do that explosion a little later while we have this rotation going on. Well, first we need to delay the start of the explosion, and we're probably going to need to track, so to speak, this polygon there so to make sure that things don't get crazy looking when the shot moves. So let's go back in here, and after this explosion, shift space, time speed. Okay, so now looking at this time speed, we have the speed, so we can speed things up or slow them down, and the delay, and the delay. And that's how many frames do we want to wait for it to start. Now, looking at our timeline, our frames start at 0. So that's going to make things pretty simple. So let's decide where we want this to start. And I'm thinking I want it to start, let's call it at 80 frames. So I'm going to set my delay to 80. Now that explosion's not going to start, or that clip is not going to start running until frame 80. So we'll play through this here, and not too bad. And we don't have a lot of movement there in the drone shot. Let's just skip ahead. I'm just trying to go back and make sure that I'm not going to have a problem with the mask. And right there, the flames are kind of in front of the building. And that's not what I want. I want them behind it. So let's take a look at our polygon and where that is. And I'll go ahead and zoom in 100%. And we can see how our mask has moved. So at this point, I'm just going to fix the mask up. So I'll just move these points to where they need to be. Okay, it's on the top of that building. We have the top of that building. We have the bottom of this building. Okay, and now I'll skip forward a few frames, make sure that everything is looking good. Now, because I made a change there to the shape, it put in another keyframe. So it did that for me automatically. I didn't have to add that. So I'm just going to go back. I'm just going to step through this a little bit and see if there's anything really out of whack here. And I'm just going to adjust that polygon. And this is basic rotoscoping. So you're taking a frame, or you're taking a mask, and as you run through it here, we can adjust the shape of it. Now, anytime you're doing this, you don't really want to have hundreds of keyframes. It just becomes a nightmare to deal with. So what I was taught by the Blackmagic instructors was to go from the beginning, then do the end, and then do the middle of that. And then you keep cutting it in half until you have enough to get the effect that you want. You don't need to just move a few frames, adjust it, move a few frames, adjust it. If you cut it in half, it's going to animate it from one point to the other, and then you just have to go back and do some little tweaks. So it can save you a lot of time doing it that way. Okay, so let's take a look at our scene here. Well, one problem that we have right now is this explosion looks really bad. It doesn't blend well into the scene at all. So let's go on to our merge node here. And we have some different options here that we can play with to help it kind of blend into the scene. So typically alpha gain and blend are going to be ones I want to work with. If I look at the alpha gain, well, no, that's definitely not going to work on this scene. So let's look at our blend option. And if I just blend this in, it's going to become a little transparent, but with all this haze in this particular scene, this is probably going to work well. So let's go ahead and we'll go back to our edit page. And yeah, that's actually not looking, I mean, of course, this isn't Hollywood budget production here. It's just to show you the concepts and kind of show you some of the tools to use to get things closer to what you want, right? So I know that this is going to look a little cheesy for right now, but I'm really just trying to get the concepts across to you. So don't give me too much flack for that. All right, so now let's back up to the beginning of where this explosion takes place. Okay, boom. The blend looks a little bad right there. So we'll go ahead and just pull it down a little bit more. And I added that camera shake. So where did I do that? Well, I'm going to do it right at the very end because I want everything to shake. So from my merge, I'm going to do camera shake. And I'll put that over here so I have some room for some other stuff in here. Now what camera shake is going to do is it's literally going to add camera shake to the whole thing. And we need to animate that at some point. So right here, I don't want any, well, before this, I don't want any camera shake. This is where I want my camera shake to start. So I'm actually going to go back a few frames and set my overall strength to 0 and my speed to 0. And I'm going to select keyframe right there. Okay. Now it starts, and as it increases, now I want to increase my overall strength and my speed. And then as the fireball dissipates, then I'm going to want to start pulling this back. So I'm going to back up just a hair here, and I'm going to make sure my overall speed is up. I'm going to keyframe these, go up a handful of frames to where it should be stopping, and then set these both to 0 again. So now we have a keyframed camera shake. So let's let this render so we can see what it's going to look like. Okay, now let's see what we've got here. There we've got our camera shake. Oh, way crazy, way crazy. So might have overdone it a little bit on the camera shake there. And to the point it actually went out of frame. So I would have to adjust the zoom on that a little bit. Yeah, you know, sometimes it's a little trial and error to get things right. So let's take a look at how nutty this thing went. And we'll go to the keyframe there. And let's turn the speed down at that point. We'll go to the next keyframe. And that's way, way strong. So yeah, we'll just tone that guy down a little bit. Now notice I was going on the timeline there to go to the next keyframe, but if I up here where the keyframe icons are and I just click that right arrow, it'll take me to the next one. So that's where it's going back to 0, and that one, the speed is high, but the overall strength isn't crazy. It's not too bad. And I am going to need to zoom a little bit to make sure that I have some space in here to make that shake so it's not out of the frame. So after the explosion, I'm going to put a transform node, and I'm just going to go to my size here and put like 1.1, except I did it on the wrong one. So I'm going to go to my background footage here, and I'm going to hit shift space. I'm going to add a transform node, and I'm going to increase the size of that. Let's try 1.1. Yep, I'm not going to need much at all to just kind of fill that out. Let's double check our polygon, make sure that's okay. So I'll just make a tiny little adjustment to the polygon here. That's enough. With that soft border I added, it is adding a little reflection on there is what it looks like. So that's going to be pretty cool. And let's just step back, make sure that there's no real oddities with our mask. So one thing about rotoscoping is it can be time consuming and it can be a lot of trial and error, and it's just a lot of work. So anytime that you can use tools like the tracker or something that can make your life easier, it's definitely worthwhile. And I could have on here. I certainly could have added a tracker to this building and then had that mask track along with it. But because of this scene, there isn't a lot of really defined good contrast. It's all this hazy, smoky kind of a look, and it would have taken a lot of work to get a good track. And I did want to show how to do this manually anyway, because I have other videos on doing more automated tracking. So I think we have this one in pretty good shape. And the one other thing we wanted to add here with this background footage, let's go ahead and add the color correction node. So if I add a color corrector, and we see we can add that kind of a red glowy look to everything, right? Well, that's definitely not what we want. We want it kind of confined to this area. So a little way of doing that, let's see on here we have an effect mask on the color corrector. So let's zoom in. Zoom into our scene here, and how are we going to do that? Well, with another polygon. So I'll add a polygon, and I'm just going to, again, rough out these buildings. Take that one, move it up there a little bit. And again, this is why I put up the project archive, is so that you could get in here, use the same stuff, and really fine-tune this to your heart's content using all of the same exact techniques that, you know, I'm showing you. And if you like that, let me know, and I'll do more videos that show that put up the project for you to play with. So if we take this polygon and we connect it to our color corrector, there we go. We now have this really ugly looking mask over it. So cleaning this up, right, we're going to do some soft edge on it. And let's do it a little bit more. So I just wanted to have that glow in there. Now if I turn this all the way up, let's just see what happens, right? So if I turn it all the way up, there's hardly anything there at all. But I want it to start when that explosion goes off. So if I just have it here, the whole thing is already kind of lit up. But let's take a look at this level, right? So on this level, we have 0 to 1. So if I have 0, it's not doing anything. And I definitely need to start off that way, right? So before that explosion goes off, let's just go through the frames here. And we'll just make sure that we're not putting in the color correction before there's anything that would cause that. All right. Well, I'm gonna get rid of this one. So if you accidentally get a keyframe in there, you can go to that keyframe. Just making sure I don't have anything there. All right. We'll just back up a couple frames. Okay, so this is where it starts. And again, notice our polygon is in a different position because we went back in time from where we created it. So I'm just going to hit Command A, make sure I have them all selected, and I'm going to go to this icon up here that says Shape Box. Now I can just grab the whole thing, and I'm just shifting things over a little bit. Again, remember, we just really roughed this out. We could go through and clean up this mask, and I want to make sure that I'm keyframing this at 0, and then I'm going to go to where the flames start. Where do I want that glow to really kick in? I'm going to have it start right about here. Again, give me my shape box, just shift my mask over a little bit, and I'm going to start bringing in some of that glow. And then let's find the spot where it's really bright. We'll bring that level up. Like that. And then it's going to start dissipating. That's a little too late. And we still have quite a bit of fire there. So I'm going to kind of go to right where, yeah, that's a good spot. This shouldn't really be illuminating anything anymore. And I'm going to pull that level back down to 0. Now, we'll go back to our edit page, and we're going to let this render again. Okay, let's take a look. All right, there we go. We have the explosion, and it's kind of blended into the scene. We have the color correction that gives us a little glow effect from the fire. We have the camera shake, and we have the time speed to give the delay before the explosion starts. So I hope this really helps out some of you with some of the different pieces that I had in here: rotoscoping, time speed, color correction, and whatever else we did. It's losing track. This took a long time to put together. So I encourage you to take the project archive, import it as a, go to your project manager, import project archive, import it, and play around with it. And what I'd really like is if you do something and it turns out really cool, post a video response in the comment here so we can see what you did and see how much better you can make it than how quickly I put this together for the purposes of this video. So thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoy these videos. If you do, give me a thumbs up, really appreciate it, and subscribe. Click that bell icon and get notified whenever a new video comes out. I'm doing my best to put out really good quality content for you guys. I really appreciate all the comments, the feedback, the people in the comments who help other people with the questions. If you have something that you'd like to see done, shoot me a message at kgarrison@gmail.com. Go to the website at kerrygarrison.com. Use the contact form, comment in the comments here. Whatever way you would like to get a hold of me, I'm happy to try and do videos based on what people are looking to do. So thanks for watching, everybody. This has been Kerry, and I will catch you later. Bye-bye.